Hello everyone, so this is my presentation on sight reading. Hopefully you can take a few things from it. Joshua's presentation really created a good foundation for some of the stuff in the color. So take a look. So this is just an outline of the presentation. So we're just going to cover what sight reading actually is. We're going to cover some of the skills, and then we're going to cover what I do when I sight read, so the process of sight reading, and then we're going to do a practical demonstration, and the whole of it. Parts of the presentation will be centered at pipers, parts will be centered at drummers, but most of it comes together to a holistic understanding of the pipe band instrument / machine ensemble. Okay. So, and then at the end, we're going to go to the floor and just get some fellow educators' comments, and then I'll take some questions for a few minutes. Okay. So, what is sight reading? Sight reading is basically playing music from a score without having previous knowledge of that score. So, when you get a score for the first time, and you see it for the first time, that's sight reading basically. Okay, so an approach I take, so obviously I will take a different approach if I've never seen the music before and I have to play it straight on the spot. And if I have a few minutes to prepare just to take a look at the music, obviously I'll take a slightly different approach to it. So I like to break things down always, and so obviously there's slightly different processes for pipers and drummers. Take a look at macro elements, which is the same. Pipers and drummers, a lot of the big elements of music are the same. Then for pipers, we take a look at the main notes. By that I mean melodic notes. Drummers can take a look at larger rhythms, structural things. And then for pipers, we go a bit further in depth. We look at grace notes. And then drummers, we take a look at intricate rhythms and movement. Yeah. And then on a macro approach, or a big, wider approach, we take a look at shapes and motifs on both pipers and drummers. So, no preparation. So if I was to put a piece of music in front of you without you having ever seen it before, that's what no preparation means. Okay, so we take a look at the macro elements. So form and phrases. Okay. So that means we've got, the first thing I look at is how many parts we have, how many parts we are required to play, where our phrases are. That helps us break down the music further. Okay, so we go smaller, smaller, smaller. Take a look at our key signature, which doesn't change most of the time, and we take a look at our time signature. We take a look at the time. So if it's a hornpipe, it's a march, it will be in simple duple time, 2/4. If it's a jig, most likely it'd be in 6/8, otherwise 9/8, 12/8. Okay, for example, there's many types of music. Okay, and the more you become familiar with them, the more you'll identify different rhythms within that type of music, and the more you'll identify what the conventions are of that type of music. Then we take a look at the micro elements, and we read ahead. So what I like to do is just dart my eye forward as I'm going, and try and keep it as fluent as I can. Okay, maybe okay, so the macro elements, okay, a bit further in depth. These are mostly interrelated, meaning they affect each other. Okay, so our form, we look at the number of bars, number of parts, phrases and repeats, time signatures, key signatures, and the type. Micro elements, reading ahead. So if I was to read a story to you or a speech, I'm going to take a look at further in the sentence just to see what's coming up. If anything sticks out, like a complicated word, for example, or a complicated rhythm or complicated melodic passage, I'm going to make that stick out in my head like a signpost. Okay. Stephanie Burns does this when she approaches the music as well. Okay. So complicated content, that's what we've got to nail down, okay, so that we're not flummoxed by it when we get to it in the sight reading. Okay. Note groupings, that helps us identify different rhythmic groups and also melodic patterns, and note shapes also similar melodic patterns. Okay. So we've got to keep it fluent, so keep playing no matter what, and the bigger picture is also more important than a micro thing. Okay. So slightly prepared. All right, so I've developed 6 steps. So we follow those same note preparation steps. So when we take a look at the music, we look at the same things. Rhythmic structure, so we just look at the rhythmic structure, melodic structure, challenging content, practice the challenging content, and then when we're playing it, you can take it slightly slower. Okay, so here are the note preparation steps, just so we've got them there on the slide. Okay. So rhythm, we can take a look at patterns, which includes compositional techniques. Okay. We can use systems, like Joshua was saying, 1 eanda, 2 eanda, and so that's simple meters. And then compound meters, we've got 1 and 2 and 4, 1, 2, 3, 2, 2, 3. Okay. So then we execute. We can start bringing in things like articulation, accents, and emphasis. And we can also start bringing in things like interpretation. Okay, so melodic elements. So this is where we can link pipers and drums together a bit more with tuning, ensemble arrangement, scoring. So all of that on the B flat. Okay. And structure, the understanding of the structure of melody. Okay. I'll give you, we can look at some examples in the practical demonstration manner. Okay. So all the patterns, compositional techniques, which also we can take a look at. Okay, so when I look at the music, try to just pick up as many patterns as I can immediately. Bang, 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 bang. Get them there so that I don't need to think about the micro elements. So take a look at some of the theory, just to fill out some of our knowledge on this. Okay, so the relevance of this is that more background knowledge on the topic enhances our perceptions of new music, and obviously it benefits us. So I've also kept it brief, just for the sake of the topic on sight reading, on theory. But, and some of these topics are quite advanced, but just to drop some seeds, here they are. Okay, so when we take a look at harmonic structure, our standard scale is A, mixer that in. Okay, so I've made a note here. So A is actually equal to B flat plus approximately 20 hertz. Okay, and our key signature, I've omitted sharps flat, just for the sake so that it's in the pipe band language. But just so that you know, there is another language there, and I've made the conversions to what we are more used to. Okay, so that for this understanding, for the knowledge of this topic, we can identify what we're doing. Okay, so you can make a matrix, okay, and you can do this for all the modes. So mixolydian is a mode. We'll touch on modes now, but this is a mode, okay, and then you've got chordal third, chordal fifth, chordal seventh. So as Joshua was saying, you build a chord 1, 3, 5. You can also add that seventh. Okay, that seventh is sometimes relevant, and we'll see. I've put an example where it's relevant. So chords are made, and generally we have simple progressions, and you can see all the different modes, right? So you can start. You'll find when you look at music, pipe and music, bagpipe music, there are tunes that are based off each of the notes of the scale. Some are more common than others, but if we take a look, you'll be familiar with tunes that are centered around B, centered around A, C not so much, D, yeah, E, sometimes, okay, F also sometimes, G sometimes, okay. So some are more common than others, but you can play a tune centered around any of these notes. And this is just to give you background information to fill out your knowledge on it, so that if you touch on a tune, you have that understanding. And also, as Joshua touched on, you've got inversions. Yeah, this is the reason why I've included this, is so that we have an understanding of shapes, because you will have the same letters, okay, so A, C, E, C, E, A. Okay, so we've just reordered the shape of the chord. And eventually, as a piper, you will learn these shapes subconsciously, and they just click. Okay. So another thing to look at is cadences. Right, so you've got 4 main types of cadences in music, but in pipe band music, we've got imperfect cadences, which is 1 to 5 and 5 to 1. Okay, so if we go back to these, I'm going back now. So if we go back to these, see, we've got 1, 5, 1, 5 in all the different modes. Okay. So now we just apply this logic to tune, and you'll see that you go 1, 5. And in function in music, generally you've got tonic function, which is 1, predominant function, which is 4, and dominant function, which is 5. Pop songs have standard 1, 4, 5 progression, and you move through that. It's a cycle. Okay. Right. So let's take a look at some music, okay, and some compositional techniques. If we take a look at this march, okay, we've got repetition. Let me just grab the trumpet. We've got variation, and we've got repetition again. So repetition. So it's the same motif twice. We've got another repetition. And we've got variation. Okay, it's not quite a sequence, which is the next one, but it is variation. You can hear how there is a slight call and response within this phrase itself. Okay, so the next extract, just to give you a feel of some of the patterns that I pick up when I'm looking through music. Okay. So this is a sequence, which means we shift the same pattern, the same interval. Yeah, we touched on intervals earlier. You can see this is 4, that's a second, 4 seconds. That's what a sequence is. Okay, and then we've got inversion. If you take a look at the pattern of the scaling notes compared to the pedal point. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 2, 3, 1, 1, 2, 3. So that's inversion. Okay. Then we've got 1, 2, 1, 1, 2, 1. That's inversion. Okay. So if we take a look, so these are just 2 different bars from Troy's Wedding. So you can hear the pattern, you can hear the sequence, and then we've got scaling. So you can hear it's ascending in the scale, and then we bounce on that higher. Okay. And then I've got just a short drumming extract from one of Buffett's scores for Troy's Wedding, same tune, and this is the 3rd bar of the 3rd bar. So there's inversion in the mirror image. You can hear that symmetry. Okay, so, and you can hear Sebastian was already introducing some of that emphasis on those accents. Okay, so the mind's here. This is a phrase that is similar to a mind's eye where you picture things in your head. You try and picture the tune in your head if you can. Okay? And this will help you have an understanding before you even play the tune. Okay. So, these are related to oral skills, meaning pitch, okay, and in our head, what we can pick up as pitch in our head, okay. And these types of skills take practice, okay. All right, so I just included a quick section on skills as well. These are just a quick topic on skills. So sight reading is interrelated. It benefits many other skills, so your theory, analysis, so notation, expression, and performance. So theory being your theoretical knowledge of music will benefit sight reading, and better you are at sight reading, better your theory will be. Okay. analysis. So as you've seen, we've already analyzed some of that music. And notation, meaning we have a tune being played and we have to write it down. Okay. Expression and performance, because the more impromptu you can be, the better the performance can be. Okay. So developing the skill takes practice. Okay. And I find it helps to comb through lots of music. So if you have big libraries of music, just go through them. Just practice. Okay. You can say, okay, I'll look at 4/4 marches today, and then you're in 4/4 march mode, for example. Okay. It also helps you select music for example, for medleys faster, and it helps you have a more accurate feel for tunes. And obviously, this skill will feed back into other skills, as we've seen with the code skills. Okay. So now we've got a practical example. So now I have a volunteer part of this who hasn't seen James anymore. Ideally. So someone pray. Because obviously I know the shit, so yeah.
I think it's you, sir.
Okay.
You can just talk us through as if you were reading it for the first time.
Okay, so I've included a round version and a dark code version. Okay, so it's a hornpipe, so it's quite challenging. But also the reason I've chosen this is it's got lots of patterns. So, hornpipe, treble clef. Sometimes hardly ever will our clef change in the pipes, but it's good to just take a note because you never know, maybe. Okay. So, key, so we've got two sharps. In Breton music, they use 3 flats, and they've got A and B flat. Just a little general knowledge. Okay, so you can see it's in 2/4 time, meaning we'll have 2 crotchet beats in bar. We've got repeats. We've got an anacrusis, which means we borrowed semiquaver from the last bar, essentially. Okay, and you can see the rhythm is round. Okay, and we've got our phrases. Okay, so you see, we've already built out an understanding of the music. Okay, this is also the dot cut version. Okay, so now we've got rhythmic structure, right? Okay, so rhythmic inversion, see that mirror image again. Okay, we've got repetition. We've got 3-bar rhythmic repetition. We've got outliers. These are different. These can stick out in your head. Okay, so you can clap this as well. Okay. And that will allow you to have an understanding of what is entailed. Okay. And you can see the form is ABAC. So you can see 2 green sections, the exact same thing, and those are outliers. Okay. So now dot cut has the exact same structure, and we also have to note our triplet execution. And this comes in our technical execution as well. Okay. Then we get there. Okay. So that's also ABAC, because it's the same macro structure, the same wider structure. So now our melodic top content, we've got our tonic at the beginning, at the end. We've got our tonic chord, D, up 2 notes to the 3rd, F, up 2 notes to the 3rd, the 5th, A. So D, F, A. Then we've got our dominant chord with that added 7. So now our dominant chord D is A, okay, because that's 5. D, F, A is 5. A, up 3. C, up 5. E, up 7. G. Then we've got repetition. Those 3 bars are the exact same thing. And we've got our outliers, the cadence, and then that 4th bar. Okay. And we identify perfect cadence here. So 5 being A, 1 being those last 3 semiquavers on D. And we've got the same form again. Okay, so now our challenging grace notes. Okay, we've got 2 D throws, 1 coming off A, 1 coming off E. We've got 2 high G throws, both coming off F. We've got 2 E half doublings, both coming off high G. We've got a C doubling tap or a C shape. Okay, so now we separate them out and go through them. also from E. Okay, so those are our 2 B throws. Then we've got our C shake. So to break down complicated grace note patterns, an understanding of the system of grace notes helps us. Okay, so if we break this down, okay, the way I teach my pupils is I look at what the fingers are doing. So if we take a look at this doubling tap, we can identify in the left hand a D doubling. So we make that strong. We've got a C tap at the end. So we add those together. There you go. There's the C doubling tap. Okay, so you just build on knowledge. Build. And it just all adds into itself. Okay. We've got high G throw. Oh, okay, and we've got an E half over. Good. So now we can do all of that. Oh, now we take it slowly. Okay, and then dot cut. Yeah, all I did there was try to get that dot cut in, just add it to the round, okay, and then obviously just take note of any exceptions where the pattern breaks, like that, because we have dot, cut, etc. until this, which is cut dot. Okay, so now I prepared a base score as well. I'm not sure if look at it. Okay, so it's relatively simple. For base score, it's conventional, not on the complicated dancer side. Okay, so we just observe. Okay, we begin. We take a look at the clef. Most rhythm is written in a neutral or a single line clef. Take a look at the time signature, same time signature. Got an anacrusis, except we must look where the repeats are. The repeats fall after the anacrusis, and therefore it's not taken away from the last bar. These are all things you need to pick up. Right. So, rhythmic structure, 2-bar phrases, got our accents on the first and the last notes. Okay. Not in each phrase, but in the last phrase, we've got the last note. Form and response, density and relief. ADAC form again. Okay. What about it? So, we're just analyzing the music. We're just breaking it down. So that's manageable for us. Otherwise, it's a bit overwhelming. Yeah, some of those theoretical concepts were a bit complicated, maybe, for you, but it's just to give you a broad understanding of how music works. Because we have these 9 notes, how do we use these 9 notes so we get the most out of them? So, one of the last things in the rhythmic structure is 2-bar phrases. Okay, so our challenging content in this, we've got a bit of syncopation, and we've got some dance rhythms. So sometimes it's useful to expand abbreviation. Okay. So, for example, on 9 and 13 stroke rolls, you need to know which one's 9, which one's 13. Okay. If you're not around your leading drummer, then you'll obviously need to know in the score. But it may be useful to break that down. Okay, similar practice can be applied to P-rock, where you have trolls on the high A, for example. It might be useful to just write that out, just so that it's there easily instead of looking out at the bottom of the page. All right, so if you want to give some of those bash estimates for syncopation, what's up? Yeah, just take each one individually.
And the blocks there.
Yeah, the blocks.
Second block there. The third block there, the last part. And then in the second line, we see those two repeat. And the last part there, we have a triplet. John, you want to play that whole thing?
Yeah, so now we take it slowly. Cool. So, obviously we're omitting the repeats for now, but you can kind of hear a tune coming through, okay, in terms of piping and drumming together, okay. So, that's exactly what we're going to take a look at now. Together, sight reading together, right. So, it's an ensemble focus. We're going to try and add some expression to it. We're going to play at a speed everybody's comfortable with it, and then also just set a solid beat so we're all on the same page. Okay. Cool. So, just in my like habits, I've added some extra grace in it, but I didn't let that get in the way of the flow of the tune. I just carried on. Okay. So here's another practical example, and this is an unprepared version. Okay, so we went through the prepared sight reading. I'll take a look at unprepared sight reading. Okay. So we observe the music. You take a look quick. Okay, it's a march. Right. Treble clef, same key signature. 2/4 march. Right. We've got 3 bars that are the same. 2 bars that are different, although they begin on the same note. We're just breaking it down. Okay? Yeah, so that's observation, right? Then we've got a snare score. So, Jason, if you just want to walk us through your thoughts on how you approach this.
Okay, so like Gordon said earlier, it's very important to be able to distinguish what type of roles we'll be playing. But I think mainly here, I want you to focus on the rhythms. We have a lot of quavers here, a lot of dots. Going into this, see where to hold, where to play the straight rounded boom. Right? We take a look at the 2/4 there. It's going to help us read this. And other than that, just go through it. And if you do mess up, I tend to just take my time, get that little bar or that little beat right before I try cycling it once again. But other than that, I think you've said mostly for me to check.
Cool. And then we've got a bass section score. So I don't know if anyone wants to give a bash for monitor. Or Joshua, do you want to give a bash?
Yeah.
Cool.
I'll do my best.
Hopefully I didn't bring sticks today.
Cool.
What am I playing on there?
Oh, I also have it.
Okay. I've got some paper here.
Hold on.
If you want. Yeah.
Putting me on the spot here.
Yeah. Okay. So, Joshua, if you also want to just take us through what you see there, straight off the bat.
Well, I'm looking straight at the note values. Definitely any repetition. I I'm already counting it out in my head, so I'm seeing 1, 2, 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and 1 and 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1 and 2, 1 and 2. So I go straight into just checking out the rhythms, counting, counting it out, looking for repetition, breakdown. This is very simple, and then obviously accents.
So more mathematical approach, which is interesting. Okay. So now, together. Yeah. All right. So nice and slowly.
No, it's fine, Thanks, Kevin. Yeah, okay, it's all right.
1, 2. Okay, yeah. Cool. Yeah, I mean, that's actually a good, you can honestly build speed. So, yeah, it's showing faster, a more marching tempo, yeah. Okay. Good. And so, any educators who have any comments, Siobhan sent some comments too. So, on the bass, she says it's important to take a look at where the accents are, as music can be quite simple, so it's always best to just put an emphasis on that musicality. Tenor, some of the rest can be complicated, so with the splits, it was important to have accounting as good as you can. And then with flourishing, each composer may have different ways of notating that flourishing. So she says to use a common ledger that you're familiar with. Okay, so any other comments or questions from the room? Yeah.
So I just want to point out, it's very important that you know sight reading is not a skill you have. The skill you improve, you develop. Okay, you're not going to wake up and you can just magically do any score, right? Earlier we spoke about looking at phrases, the patterns, really for most of any scores of music, having a good pre-knowledge of different types of phrases, getting used to them, it's so much easier to learn and get into the tune when you already know some common phrases. Because maybe when you get in, there's 2 bars here that you already know since your practice of phrases. But yeah, other than that, I think it's just very important that you know it is something you have to improve. Get any new pieces of music from anywhere, Google it, you might find something, and just go for it. Go for it. You make a mistake, who cares? You're on your own, you're going for it, you're going bar by bar. If you make a mistake, I think it's very important that you try and correct it right there and there. So that when you take that information you just learned, you can apply it to every single tune.
Yeah, always be trying to improve. That's the important thing. Our life and our project. So, yeah,
maybe just something to add on, especially if you're a novice learner and you're not good at sight reading yet. Go to YouTube, go and listen to the tunes. Like, get the melody in your head, know what it's supposed to sound like, because that will be such a big. It'll make it so much easier trying to learn the music if you know what it's supposed to sound like.
On YouTube, what I sometimes use is that little gear icon. Click that, and you can change the playback speed, you can make it nice and slow, and then you can give it a shot there. Yeah, any other points? Okay, I'm not sure if there's anything on the chat. Check that. Otherwise, yeah. Thank you. Yeah, I hope you've taken at least one little thing. It's not a few big things or whatever from it. No.
We have someone's raised a hand here. Do you mind just typing a question in the chat? It's just easier that way. I think it was Ronell. Yeah, I do want to add, I suppose, some of the stuff that you said is it sort of hints at some things that maybe are good to say explicitly. When we're sight reading, obviously we want to be actually looking ahead of what we're playing. I think some people tend to, you look at what you're playing and then the beat comes and as you look at that, you need to be playing it. Obviously, in terms of reading rhythm, we're reading a group ahead, and that's why we group rhythms in certain time signatures like words, so we can take in a little bit of information at a time. In terms of repeating, I find sometimes my students get to the end of the line and then they stay there. And then there's always that typical hiccup of in repeat or into the next thing, because you've got to drag your eyes across the score. And just, it's not obviously a massive part of it, but just thinking about what are my eyes doing and being conscious about that a little bit does help a lot to keep the flow of the music going. And then as Franz said, hearing it as a novice player is very important. And through that whole process, over time, as you gain experience, the more and more you do that, your mind's ear develops, and you'll be able to look at a drum score or a piece of music and actually hear it in your head. And that also ties into the fact that this is how we're supposed to make music, is it plays in our head and it just comes out through our instrument, whether we're sight reading or doing something that we practiced over and over again. Okay, no, that was a false alarm on the question there. So, Gordon, thank you very much.
Sure.
That brings us to the end of his presentation. Thank you, Gordon.